You don't find a path, you forge a path. Especially now with a world that is changing as quickly as it's changing. There's no way to really lay out this path, step 1 through 10. Even for those people that found out, okay, sales, started talking about sales, and they start to discover that they're excited about sales. If you got into sales in the 90s, sales looked a very specific way. But now in 2024, well, there is an aspect of social media around selling that you can utilize. There was no way for you to predict that 30 years ago. You couldn't have predicted that. You're forging a path and you're paying attention to the way the world is continuously changing, and then you're having to make choices, and move forward from there.
Matt, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, brother. Honored to have you.
Yeah, well, it's an honor to have you on. As I was rapping with you a little bit before we started recording, I mean, this is a conversation that's crossing my desk a lot. In fact, I have a mastermind group, and my group community manager said, I have a scenario today, and he began to tell a story, and he had a friend that committed suicide. I shouldn't say committed suicide, fell victim to suicide last week. And, part of my mastermind group is we do a little bit of debriefing where people can come in and talk through some of those challenges and just debrief through it. And then I have you, and I was sharing with you, I've got another friend. They've got a young 20-year-old who's also suffering with depression right now. And it just seems it's coming from everywhere. So, I mean, in your thoughts and experience and just maybe words, what do you think's going on? Why are we having such an epidemic of fucked up young males today suffering with mental health issues and challenges?
Yeah, that's a big question, man. And it is, and a big question, because I don't think there's one thing we can point the finger at. I think there's a bunch of things that are converging and coming together. And when I say I think, I know I don't have all of the answers, but I'm speaking from 2 decades in education, working with thousands of families. And that's where I'm getting a lot of this information, man. I think there's a multitude of things. One, the school system is not designed to prop up the individual. The school system is designed to build slaves. So we're starting that very, very young. And that conveyor belt model of schooling is built to build an apathetic human. Forget all of the, people worry about the indoctrination side of it. And sure, that happens in some places, but it's more the system itself is designed around apathy. So we pump in apathy early and often to distract young men from their factory settings. And then we got those factory settings. They're wanting to get up and run around, man. They're young men, they're young boys. They're wanting to move. They're wanting to be physical. Well, we take physical education out of the schools and we go, if this 5-year-old can't sit down and listen to some boring lecture about something he doesn't understand and doesn't care about, well, he must have a methamphetamine deficiency. We got to get him on drugs early and often, right? So we're doing a lot with the school system. I think the fatherless home issue is a massive issue. The homes where fathers are not leading by example and they're perpetual boys is another giant issue. We've got endless distractions for young men. We've taken away multiple opportunities for them to be physically fit, forgetting that physical fitness is, the precursor to mental fitness. It's all of these things. And then as we get older, these young men have grown up with that now becoming their foundation, and they're getting
their normality,
and that's becoming normal,
right?
That's becoming normal. And so then we pump them full of these messages in the media where it's like, oh, well, you're struggling with overthinking. Young men don't struggle with overthinking. They struggle with underacting, but they've been trained to underact, and I think all of those things are culprits.
Yeah. So, you started a school which really sort of focused on a more Socratic kind of methodology. Tell me a little bit about that, sort of what drove you to create this school, and what are the results you're seeing from this type of education and experience?
Yeah. The why behind that, I always tell people my career in education started when I was a 4-year-old, because I learned at 4 that there was a game being played at school, and by 8, I realized I'll get straight A's the rest of my time in school and I won't have to try. And it's not because I'm that smart, but I saw that there was a game being played. So I just got good at the game, and so then you graduate, I got my straight A's and I'm like, well, I have no idea who I am. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I have to offer the world. And I saw that game. I ended up at Stanford University in my early 20s and working there and saw the game from the inside. saw some of the things that we were told, were kind of the part of this meritocracy that I wasn't really seeing as something that truly existed. So went into the public schools as a public school teacher, public school administrator, private school teacher, private school administrator, ultimately had kids of my own. And as I started going into that conveyor belt program and understanding why the conveyor belt schooling system looked the way it did, once I came to that realization, I'm like, I'm not sending my kids there. So that was the why behind starting. I wanted to start something my own kids could go to. And so that turned into multiple campuses. Tim and I are now launching. We've got 50 campuses that are launching this fall, another 100 that are launching in 2025. So we're launching these all over the world. But, as far as results, it's an interesting conversation because we're finding that the results are widely varied, as are humans. The whole point is we move them forward in the ways they want to move forward. So I can tell you about a 16-year-old making $100,000, in his businesses. I can tell you about my own daughters being 9 and 7 when they bought their first horses based on the businesses they were running. I could tell you about the high school kids getting degree required jobs that they're working while they're in, high school. I can tell you about the middle school students whose parents are coming home going, he makes more money than us. I can tell you those things. But the problem with sharing those things is that sometimes parents will automatically assume, oh, okay, well, if I send my kids there, then this. When the reality is that's that's the parents working together with us on that. That's really everybody getting back to factory settings, paying attention to that young human and going, who is he or she? Well, it's all of those. And so, I take more pride in the, young lady who, the young lady who's deathly afraid of speaking in public and very, very shy as she comes in and works through, and she ultimately gives a TEDx. At our facility, we hosted a TEDx, and she was a key speaker. I take more pride in the young man whose father left him, and his mom couldn't afford to send him there, but he created businesses and worked multiple jobs while he was in high school to send himself to school for these opportunities. I like to tell those stories more.
You got to open one up in Costa Rica.
If we got somebody in Costa Rica that's ready to go, we don't pick locations. People choose to apply and come partner with us. So if you know somebody in Costa Rica that's ready to rock and roll, let's do it.
I will. I was actually going to ask you, to be opening so many campuses, there's a level of quality assurance, right? Like how do you ensure that these different campuses are sort of, holding up the standard to what you and Tim have created?
It's a great question. So there's no such thing as a panacea. There's no such thing as perfect. If I stood here and told you that this was perfect and perfectly designed, you should run far away and quickly. But what I will tell you is we're very intentional. We think we have a really good thing, and we will continue to evolve as we see, holes to plug and things to continue to build on. So part of this is an application process up front. Since Tim and I launched the physical campus portion of this in an affiliate manner. When I say affiliate, I think of more like a CrossFit type, right? Like
you guys provide the curriculum and like the structure for it, and
the structure and the training. We provide training all throughout, and we also provide nonprofit opportunities through our foundations and scholarship opportunities and all of these things. But this is that person who opens the campus. That is their business that they're bringing to the community. We want to help them be successful. So we've had 1,300-ish applications at this point. We've only said yes to about 150. We do the background checks, and we're looking for people that really want to do this and do this well.
Well, that's actually quite amazing in the fact that there's been so many applicants, because that goes to show that there is a population out there that, is hungry for a different solution when it comes down to schools.
That's correct. And there's no ads on, like, we're not running ads. We're not paying for that. It's just, that's literally just word of mouth by going, hey, we got some great people in our circle who's interested. But one of the differences in our campuses too, which helps answer that question around quality assurance, is we believe in education for the whole family. We can talk growth mindset all day long for these young people and pour into them around all the things that humans thrive with. And if they go home to mom and dad who aren't growing, who aren't changing, well, that's not helping that young person, right? So when they go to our schools, mom and dad go through our men's and women's program. That's part of that. So they're growing too. But what else that allows us to do is I've got mom and dad from every student at every campus going through our programs. So we get to know them very well. So we get to hear what's going on those campuses, not just continuously working with those affiliates, which we do, but also working with their customers directly, right? And creating that community is a big part of that quality assurance, because we're making quality human beings, and then they'll assure the quality too, right?
Well, that's why you're on the show, right? Making humans better humans, right? You're doing it every single day.
Good point, brother.
Yeah. So, I'm interested about the mom and the dad program. So, like, do they do them separately, or is it like the couple does the program together? And then what is that program? What are they learning? What are they going through? How long is it?
Great question. So, all the programs are designed to be able to stand alone if they need to. You don't have to have a child in one of our campuses. And we got men that are going through the program that don't have kids in our campuses. We've got women that are going through that don't have kids in the campuses. We got women that are going through, but their husbands aren't. Men that are going through, but their wives aren't. And then we have some that are both, right? Men and women, and their kids are in the camp. We've got all of the above. Anything you can mix and match on that. The programs for the men and the women, year one is 12 months. We do have live events and second year curriculum that's extraordinarily intense, but we've got a year put together up front for both. And that's what comes with your membership at a school campus too. That year up front is taking a look at this. Was not a Matt and Tim got together and went, oh, okay, well, this would be cool. What if they let's have them do. No, we worked with people who were ninjas in areas of human development and growth. So their month one is focused on their personal psychology. But we worked with Jordan Peterson. We worked with Todd Herman. We worked with Andrew Shaw. We worked with people that are ninjas in that field to go, okay, what are the books? What are the projects? What are the challenges that they should take on during that month to really focus on that? And we're coaching them around that. They go into time and energy management and setting a chief definite aim. We go into physical fitness. We go into spiritual health. We go into logical fallacies, learning how to communicate. We go into the intentionality of marriages, the intentionality of parenting, setting up a family legacy, resilience, sales, marketing, and then going into a financial education game that most people don't even know exists. So we're extraordinarily thorough. And again, not Matt and Tim putting it together. We're going to the best of the best in each of these categories. So as they're going through this, they're getting coached through this, but then they also every week are on live calls with the best people on the planet. So you and I were talking right before we started. Right after this, I go into the men's call for this week when we have Ben Greenfield coming in to talk health and fitness and to help our guys. So they get to ask these mentors directly. And so we've had quite literally the best of the best. You name it, we're bringing them in on the show, and they're coming in as guest mentors too. So it's a really thorough program. Again, nothing's perfect. I'm sure we'll make changes, but it's been highly successful.
Cool. We were recently looking at a school, or a friend was telling us about it, and it's out of Florida, and I think there's a campus in Texas. I don't know the name. I could look it up in a sec, but their model is this. So they do, I think it's like the 80-20 rule. So just for say it's a 7-hour day. So the first 90 minutes is their traditional education, which is run through AI. So there's no official classroom with a teacher. There's an AI program that's obviously adjusting to get the more traditional academics done, right? Writing, reading, math, science, all that stuff. And then the rest of the day is spent on life. Entrepreneurship, starting a business, financial literature, or literacy, coding, whatever it is. And these kids, they're getting to high school, and as similar to what you were talking about, are actually running businesses, right? So you get not just high school, you get the 10, 12-year-old that's created a company running a business. And, the idea behind it is you're setting them up for success in life, because instead of putting them through the conveyor belts of what you described earlier, which is that traditional school, which by the way was, I'm sure you know this, designed for the factory worker, right? It was designed for the industrial sector, which is get people to line up, sit down, follow instructions, and then, as you said, spit them out into the factory, right? So, with that, with AI coming along, how do you guys see yourself sort of taking advantage of that? Or utilizing AI?
Yeah, it's a great question, and those sound like those campuses sound like they're doing some great things. And because what you mentioned is very true. It is a Prussian. The model that we've used for so long was a Prussian model. It was brought over. It was really a human behavior management system. It was not a system built around education. It was around human management, behavior management. And then Rockefeller came and brought it over and said, "Hey, let's tie that whole program into the Industrial Revolution." And there we go, right? And we haven't changed, and we've only started to tighten the agendas and teach more to the tests. And so again, that's building out a lot of the apathy that we started out talking about for these young men. So you're spot on that. And I want listeners to be able to understand that, because there's a religious devotion to what school looks like and what it's always looked like that people have a really hard time getting around. And that makes it hard for them to adopt things like utilizing AI. Right. We very much, I'm all for AI is a part of life now, right? It's one of the meta skills that we're going to need. You alluded to the fact that the conveyor belt model and life demand different things. They're different games. I said, all right, Greg, man, I want you to be really, really good at basketball. So I'm going to give you 12 years. All we're going to do is play football. And I'm going to tell you it's the same thing. You're going to come out and I'll be like, okay, here's the round ball. Here's the hole. And you're like, well, hold on, I need my pads, I need my helmet. We're like, no, different game. And people want to justify it and go, well, there's still teamwork and there's still a ball. And there's, okay, cool, but it's still a different game with different rules. School and life are demanding different things. So we operate very much the same. It's a microcosm of the real world. What does the real world actually want? And AI can be a part of that. So our early campuses are utilizing things like synthesis, to be able to work with academics. That's an AI-based mathematics program. We'll utilize that, and students will utilize AI for some of their projects that they're working together to collaborate on and to create, things in the real world. And as AI continues to evolve, we'll pay attention to that too. Now, that doesn't mean that we're trying to make robots. It doesn't mean that I'm going to use AI for our 5-year-olds who really need to do more play than anything else. We're also going to be developmentally appropriate, right? No 5-year-old needs to sit down in front of a computer for 6 hours on AI. All right, they don't. That's actually developmentally inappropriate. We're going to follow the development of the human, but we can't be afraid to utilize a tool that it is going to be required in the real world.
Right. Yeah, as you said that, I was just picturing like the pandemic. My kids were 3 and 5 at the time, and then 4 and 6 when we actually came down to Costa Rica. But that previous year was, don't worry, stick your kids on Zoom. We're going to run your classes virtually. Boom, 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 boom. And I watched these 2 kids just completely diminish. And their energy went down. And one of the reasons we stayed in Costa Rica was because of the kids. Like the experience was the education itself. And I have this vivid memory of the first time we were here with my kids running barefoot, jumping on other kids, playing in the grass, running, jumping in the pool. Like it was just complete freedom, right? There was no boundary to it. And I was like, this is what a 4 and a 6-year-old needs. Right? This is life for them right now. We'll figure out school and all that shit later. My wife's also always wanted to do homeschooling, but she's been a little bit weary around, doing it just in regard to how's it going to be managed, curriculum, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm actually excited to say, by the way, I met Matt today, and, before we go doing homeschooling, let's go check out some of his programs.
And look, we've got about 200 families that we bring through home education too. I'm all for it, man. If that's what makes the most sense for your family, do it. And again, it's the religious belief around, even people that understand what you were able to articulate, that look, schooling wasn't built for the human, there is still this innate fear, because we're going, okay, well then what do we do? Then how do we do it? Right? If it's not that, I don't know how to not recreate that. And so there's the understanding, G.K. Chesterton has a great quote where he talks about the fact that education is not a series of subjects. It's a transfer of a way of life. And mom and dad, you already have been home educating now for 4 and 6 years. Like you've already been doing it, so it's really actually very simple.
Yeah, it's true. So, I kicked off the episode to say sort of, why do you think we see such an epidemic with young males today when it comes down to mental health? And, males have kind of, always been more predominantly affected by things like suicide and mental health. But let's sort of flip the question. What's the answer? So what do young males need to develop, work on, grow with, which is going to maybe counteract some of the effect that we're seeing from society, from traditional schools, from distraction, from everything?
It's a great question. And
and in your opinion, I know there's no sort of one side answer.
Yeah, right? Well, no, 100%. But it's the cultural, correct answer, right, would be to give all of these routines and these things to go after. What we have found, and again, we have found working with, at this point, thousands and thousands of families, is it really is a preservation of what I call factory settings. A lot of times for our young men now, it's an addition by subtraction problem. And so what I mean by factory settings is you come out of the womb, you're healthy, you're curious, you're willing to engage with the world. It's really getting back to that healthy curiosity. And so there's a bunch of things in there. Physical health does matter. I am not the guy, and in fact, and a lot of my friends are this guy, and I'll call them out on the BS on this, and I love them dearly, but I'm not the guy that says, get a 6-pack and it's going to change your whole life. That's provably garbage, but get healthy. That does matter. Physical fitness does matter. Getting out and getting in the sun, eating real food, not giving yourself a bunch of garbage, right? That does matter. So eliminating all that trash stuff does matter. Having a physical pursuit matters. We talk about for adults, you're the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? Yeah, it's true. Why do we think that's any different for kids? Why do we think that's any different for young men? Why do we think that's true always and forever? So who are the people around you? What is that circle? Who is transferring? We talk about G.K. Chesterton in that quote. Who's transferring their way of life to you? Because now you're seeing that as normal, right? So who are you around? What does that circle look like? And then you said a key word. It was work. For a young man in particular, his schedule needs to be as full as possible in pursuit of something. I am not a huge fan of the follow your passion narrative. Not a fan of that because what I hear from young men is, well, video games are my passion. So I'm going to follow it. So I'm going to play that 8, 10, 12 hours a day. Actually, video games are one of the biggest distractions that if a young man has any sort of quote unquote struggle that he's working on, mental health issues, ditch the video games. Those need to go. They need to get away because they're literally a dopamine draining device, as are these things right here. I'm not going to pretend that cell phones are the villain or the video games are the villain. But the problem is they are physiologically dopamine draining devices. So if you already are having issues, we need to put those things down so that we're not draining the dopamine. And we're going to go get your dopamine fix by actually working on something and creating something. So for young men, it is about the work. What can you pursue? And it doesn't have to be something you love. Go work 2, 3, 4, 5 part-time jobs.
Oh, I love you said that.
That's it. That's the way to go, because you learn a lot about yourself in the process of that too. Right. But it is that work, and it's not about following your passion. It's following opportunities, outworking everybody in those opportunities, and eventually you're going to find that you're going to bring your passion to stuff after that.
Yeah, I love what you just said, which is this follow your purpose bullshit is it's been the wrong lesson or message is the word I'm looking for to share. I mean, when we look at the previous generations before us, you didn't get to go follow your passion and shit. You went to go and work. Then you scheduled yourself and you built and you got to do your passion. And I do believe there's a wall being blended here, which is you can love what you do. But I think maybe the message out to sort of the younger folks, you got to go and work those 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 jobs in order to really figure out what your purpose is. I was meeting with this association earlier, and they're a sales association, and we were just talking about how this person, she does facilitation at a university, and there's a sort of resistance to getting into sales because there's a perception that it's like it's a negative sort of shitty job type of thing, right? And people don't like you. Anyway, by the time she's finished with them, people are so excited to get into sales, but like the convincing that you have to do. And we got into the conversation, like none of us really knew we wanted to get into sales until we went through some of those jobs and ended up in sales positions and went, oh shit, like this is awesome, right? Like this is what I want to do, right? And this is what I want to sell. And yeah, this is the problem with, I think, media, social media, is they've sensationalized the easy path. Pick your passion, dream it, manifest it, breathe into it deeply, journal that, and it will come. And you know, the movie, The Secret, the book, The Secret, right? Law of attraction. And, I think as John Assaraf says this, he says, law of attraction works as long as you're applying the law of Goya, Goya, which is get off your ass. So you could attract anything you want, but it's going to be because of action. And what we talk a lot about here at Witz is action creates the path. Go and walk the path, go and take the steps, and we'll start to figure it out.
That's right. You don't find a path, you forge a path, right? That's it. And that's the way it goes. And the reality is there's no way to fully, especially now with a world that is changing as quickly as it's changing, there's no way to really lay out this path, step 1 through 10, even for those people that found out, okay, sales, right? Talking about sales, and they start to discover that they're excited about sales. If you got into sales in the 90s, sales looked a very specific way. But now in 2024, well, there is an aspect of social media around selling that you can utilize. There was no way for you to predict that 30 years ago. You couldn't have predicted that. So it's just you couldn't have even forged that path. So you're forging a path, and you're paying attention to the way the world is continuously changing, and then you're having to make choices, and move forward from there. But that's the way it actually works. You're right.
30 years ago, we opened a phone book and just picked names and called them, and hopefully got someone on the phone and convinced them to buy something, right?
That's right. That's it. Or you went around and you started knocking on doors,
Correct.
That was it.
Correct. On that note, I think maybe that's kind of part of the challenge today, which is this isolation, people playing video games, sitting by themselves. Sales today is very difficult because people just do not respond. Like there is no response to the email, the phone call, the text message, the DM, the LinkedIn message. It's like you're ghosted every single day in all aspects of your life. And it pushes up against one of our human needs, which is significance. We need to feel important. And when we're, being rejected brings a little bit of significance because there was enough emotion and energy to tell you to F off, right? So I'm obviously somewhat important to you, but when I'm completely ghosted and abandoned, right? When I'm completely ignored, there's an isolation that comes with that. And I think this is one of the major challenges we're seeing specifically with young males, but people in general, the normalizing of being by self, right?
Yeah, that's a dangerous spot, man. It's a dangerous spot. And look, you don't have to get that significance from millions of people. It doesn't need to be millions of followers. It doesn't mean we've never operated that way. We've gotten our significance from our small circle, as we grew up and we weren't connected. And there's obviously beautiful things about being connected to the whole world. You and I are connecting. I'm in the mountains of North Carolina. You're in Costa Rica. We're getting to connect right now. That's a beautiful thing. But the world was never operating like that before. And you got significance from a tight bond with a small amount of people. Even when we grew up, I grew up in the States and grew up in California and I had a large high school, but the significance came from my friendships with, this small group of guys here, the sports team here. It's always been a small thing. We just got to get back to where we have at least that tight circle. And then, other things won't impact us as much, but we've got to have those relationships.
Yeah. So you mentioned that before, which is your top 5. Totally agree. Your network is your net worth. We're influenced and in fact, somewhat, programmed by what we absorb and who we are around. And we're absorbing all the time, right? And I'm hypersensitive about who I'm around and who my kids are around. And, you could call me a little bit of an asshole when it comes down to things, but it's important, right? You need to be very specific. So what are the qualities that you look for in people? Like, for people in your life, in your circle, what are the qualities that you would recommend for people to say, hey, if you're looking for friends, you're looking to build a community, these are the type of folks, these are the types of things you should look for?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. And acta non verba is something that really came up this last weekend. We had a live event for some of our men out here in the mountains, and that was really something that they kind of whittled down. Really the key players in our entire APOGEE movement. There's thousands of us here in various verticals about this, and they're acting non verba. Like, who are the guys that show up? It's not about what they're saying. And I've had this thing that I've kind of come to realize, and I've said verbally a number of times on some podcasts too, that what I've noticed is most people will say what they wish they believed, and what they do is what they believe. And so for me, when I'm looking at people in my circle or who should be in my circle, what you say you believe and what you do need to be right on top of each other. And if they're right on top of each other, infinite amount of trust, honesty, respect, like ready to go. But if those things are disproportionately, spread out, then I'm not going to take my time. So it's a lack of hypocrisy, is really what I'm looking for. You say what you mean and you mean what you say. It's an old school value, right? We talk about the APOGEE code. It's just an old school Bushido code with honesty and integrity and compassion and politeness and, bravery. It's that, man. It's the basics on those things and not being hypocritical around it. It's harder to find than it should be.
Yeah. What's that line? Something along the lines of, I'll judge you on what you do, not what you say.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah.
That's what's real.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Matt, for the audience, let's drop some of your links. So if people want to learn more about you, if they wanted to get in touch with you, if they wanted to, find out more information about some of the programs, where could they go?
I appreciate that. APOGEEstrong.com is definitely the first place to go. APOGEE Strong is a little documentary right up front that says a lot about what we're doing. So that's a great place to go if anybody's interested in helping some other families. APOGEePays.com is our payment processing. We don't make any money from that. We take all of the money that would be made on the margin there and we pour it into scholarships for families. APOGEeStrongFoundation.org is one of our nonprofits too. So any of those places are great, and I'm on everything just at my name too. People can reach out. I try to get back to everybody that sends me a message about anything at all.
Yeah, I'm actually following you on Instagram now as well. Right, so you put out a lot of information there as well, which is very cool.
There's a lot, yeah, for sure.
Awesome. All right, at the end of the episode, we come to the most important question, which is, what do you think we could all do to be better humans tomorrow?
I love that. Well, I think we have to leave it with what we were just talking about right there. Do what you say you're going to do. It's so simple. And so many people don't do it. Do what you say you're going to do. And if you say you want to do something, do it twice. Keep it going. That's it.
That's amazing. To the audience, we're going to have all of these links in the show notes. So if you missed them before, don't worry about it. You can go and click the show notes and get those links out there. Definitely go hit Matt up on some of the social platforms. I just connected with him on Instagram. I'm sure you're all over the place. APOGEestrong.com is the website where you could find out more information. And really, to the families out there, right? You have a responsibility to make proper decisions on how you educate your kids, and you could actually have a lot of influence and impact on that, and not show up passively. Stand up and make some strong decisions around sort of what you want your kids to be. And in some capacity, the greatest thing we're trying to sort of do with our kids is give them an opportunity, not give them, but teach them how to just be great decision makers, right? Because if we could send these people out into the world and they could think and make good decisions and drive certain results, I mean, that's a winning combination to win at life.
That's a win.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, always a pleasure. Stay happy, stay healthy. If you like today's episode, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share it. Put it out to someone that you might think can benefit from this. And we will see you next time.